Yearning to play a few rounds of Gwent. That ought to set me straight.
It's Commander's Horn, episode 66. Today I'm joined by NoControl and Greyboxer to talk about an upcoming live North American tournament which NoControl has spearheaded. We'll also have a competitive focused discussion about the dominant Dwarves and how Gwent might be deciding to balance before the beginning of the next season. All this and a hearty mug of ale on this episode of Commander's Horn.
Guys,
New year, we're here. It's Commander's Horn, your weekly Gwent podcast. I am one of your hosts, Dane McBeard, and I am joined by Greyboxer and NoControl. It's going to be a great episode. First, Greyboxer, you're probably still recovering from the holidays, but how has it been getting reacclimated to Gwent?
It's been great. I survived the blizzards of the holidays. If you guys haven't paid any attention, my hometown received about 6 feet of snow in Erie, Pennsylvania. The other day, I ended up driving home from a friend's house after staying up extremely late playing Game of Thrones. And it was so cold, my washer nozzle froze, and I had to drive with my head hanging out the window like Ace Ventura.
Oh my god!
But yeah, getting back into Gwent was a lot easier than that. It took me about 10 minutes with the new deck building interface, so it's been really great, man.
That's awesome, man. Also, fighting out of the red corner, the organizer of the upcoming live North American Gwent event. We can use the name. We can use the name.
Go for it.
The Wild Hunt. The Wild Hunt Philadelphia, it's being called here. Also one of the newest members of the Gwenlemen and a great player, competitor, earning crown points in the top 200 of the pro ladder. NoControl, how you doing, man?
What's going on, guys? How we doing?
Pretty good.
We got a great tournament coming up here on February 24th. Sunday, we will be opening up the registration for it. So, yeah, look forward to that. Me, Shu, and Pumpkin, and Joe Snow are all going to be doing a live stream from the event on Sunday. So it should be a good time. We're going to, do what we can to promote this thing and have some fun. So it should be good.
Yeah, even my dog's excited. I can hear it. She's barking on the live podcast. No, it's going to be really awesome. I think that just quickly, I mean, we're going to be talking about this in the news. Maybe we'll just I think we've seen the Europeans have enjoyed a real luxurious Gwent landscape, I think. So I think it's time to get some people all in the same room on the NA side of things. And I think that a good time to start is now in the new year. Who knows what the game is even going to look like in February? We might have all sorts of new stuff. I mean, we are expecting some changes coming, I imagine, because the pro ladder season is getting turned over on the 8th of January. Sorry, the pro ladder season is getting turned over on the 4th of January.
Yeah.
The ranked season is getting turned over on the 8th of January. So we're going to talk about the tournament. We're going to be talking about that, and we're going to be talking about kind of the state of season end. But as far as right now, what's the ladder like for you guys? What are you guys playing in Gwent right now? For me personally, I've been trying a lot of Northern Realms brews, and I think the consume is still really strong. I haven't gone over to the dark side of Dwarves yet. I don't know, Greyboxer, if you've been doing that.
I didn't. I've been able to avoid Dwarves. I think for the first few days of being back in 2018, and I've been really enjoying Northern Realms. And it's fitting that this is the this is the podcast, the North American podcast. It's the it's perfect. I think that Northern Realms has been one of those decks that you've always sort of known how it works. And while it may have had, a few months ago, a couple of strange variants and a lack of identity, Northern Realms has always been a deck where you just kind of focused on, working on your armor and reinforcing and getting units out on the board. And I think that I'm having a lot of fun right now playing Siri Nova Bomb and even playing some pro ladder with it in these dwindling days of the season. I'm seeing a lot of different opponents, and this deck is really building up a lot of power. It's got the great finisher in Siri, and I'm having a ton of fun with it. So yeah, really digging Northern Realms right now.
That's awesome. NoControl, you're hitting the pro ladder. I guess you'd be playing a little bit of everything in that case, but is there a deck that's been standing out to you specifically that you've been playing and enjoying these days?
Well, I haven't really done too much with pro ladder this season because I work a full-time job and I am doing all this Gwenleman stuff on top of it. So since this season basically doesn't mean anything for me because I can't catch up in crown points, I decided to just enjoy the regular ranked ladder and just experiment as much as I can. I've just been loving Shupe, and initially I thought that Shupe decks would just be too inconsistent to even think about, but it's turning out that you can just put all the good stuff in a faction in one deck and Shupe, or one ofs, but still, and make a viable deck. So I've been having fun with Shupe, especially, I mean, the Dwarf variant's fun, but I've seen a few monster variants floating around that have been doing all right, and, you know, I've just been having fun with the game.
Yeah, Shupe's a pretty crazy one. There are some decks that can really support. I think Skellige and Scoia'tael kind of stand out as decks that at least people have been pushing to Grandmaster for recently, because, you know, they have so many options. Shupe is such a strong card, be it going for the mage form and getting that huge swing charm, if you're able to pull it off, or just getting the positive point spy, the four strength draw card. But there's 15 different options for this guy, and they're all pretty good. You usually know what you're going for, so Shupe decks are pretty awesome, I think. But yeah, I mean, that's good. I mean, I feel like the streamer in me should be appreciating Nova and Shupe a little bit more. I tried Shupe a little bit. I need to revisit Shupe. I think Scoia'tael felt pretty good. Monsters was rough. I don't think you can play Shupe very effectively with monsters. But that you know, that could just be a challenge that's out there for somebody else, perhaps. But,
yeah, I think Shupe is a great addition to this this card set, and with these 100 cards dropping, I think that we're really looking forward to what might be an arena mode coming up, because Shupe is a really cool card for that sort of setup, right? Like just if you think you're gonna hit Shupe, or if you can hit Shupe and then just pick one ofs, you know, you can have like a really solid chance of winning in an arena setup.
I mean, it's tough. I mean, you'd have to kind of like always be planning for it, and then perhaps drafting a deck that, I mean, if you're playing Scoia'tael stuff, you probably can do that anyway with elves. So, like, you know, there's a lot of synergy with elves, a lot of synergy with dwarves. It's really interesting. It's a really cool deck building card as is Nova, and hopefully we get more of those, because I feel like Gwent, you know, from a large part of Gwent is on the deck building screen. You're teching against what you think you're going to find on the ladder. You're building to specific conditions like Nova and Shupe, and you're always trying to get your synergies right so you can meet your win condition, execute your strategy completely. So deck building is so important in Gwent. I think that cards like that are just a perfect fit. So anyway, I want to just quickly talk to you guys, the chat and everybody listening, tell you guys that this episode of Commander's Horn is live, recording live from Twitch on my channel at twitch.tv/McBearded. You can find all episodes of Commander's Horn at commandershorn.com, which we are working on revamping for the new year. So you can get excited about that. You can also subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, and other podcasting apps. Pick it up on, you know, if you use iTunes at all, if you use something like Downcast, which is my podcasting app of choice. That kind of stuff does pick up the feed. Send your emails to commandershornpodcast@gmail.com or tweet at us at commandershorn.
This week's show is brought to you by our sponsor, Series Nova Bath Bombs. Are your friends always saying, "Don't make me bath"? Get them to yield and save some time with Series Nova Bath Bombs. They're sure to bring cheer just in time for the holidays. Just kidding. This episode is brought to you by our Commandos, our patrons at patreon.com/commandershorn. Thanks for keeping the mics on and the podcast ad-free.
All right, guys, there is a fair amount to talk about. I think we're probably going into a kind of a cycle here where there's going to be a lot of news to come as we go into a season turnover, which is usually some of the most exciting times in Gwent. We got a lot of new cards in December at the end, and we just had Gwent Challenger. So stuff has happened already, but I think that there's going to be a gloss. There's going to be a little bit of polish and a little bit of change. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the upcoming tournament, and of course, we'll talk about the state of Gwent right after this. So, NoControl, we have you on the podcast. It's great to have you on the podcast. You're a great player. Obviously, we're going to have some great discussions about Gwent, but you are also in a very critical role here. You're spearheading the development of this Wild Hunt Philadelphia North American Gwent tournament, which is taking place on February 24th, 2018, and at an undisclosed location at this moment. It hasn't been disclosed yet. and some stuff's coming up. It's going to be taking place in Philadelphia, which is Greyboxer's home state, which is pretty cool as well. So I can imagine that you will be there as well, so we can get together on American soil for not the first time, the second time. But NoControl, talk to us about kind of what made you decide to take this on.
Well, essentially, I was just tired of all the Europeans having all the fun, and I saw a lot of posts either on Twitter, on Reddit, whatever, saying, why doesn't someone start a North American tournament? Why doesn't someone do this? So initially, we started planning for this months ago. I believe it was about 5 months ago, and we shelved it for a little bit because I just didn't have the support for it at the time. And then it resurfaced right before Challenger when everyone was getting excited for Challenger. So I just started contacting everybody in North America who's either a streamer or a caster like yourself, and just tried to see if people wanted to make this thing a reality. And I just got enough good comments that decided to go for it. So now it looks like we're going to have a North American tournament series. Got a little bit lucky on, Nerd Street Gamers, who's our broadcaster and doing all of that. They've hosted huge Counter-Strike events in the past, StarCraft events. So we have a very veteran company behind us that's pushing us towards doing this right. So pretty happy about it.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the connection? Can you tell us if that's something that they're just doing as a one-off to see what kind of foothold they can gain with Gwent, or are they more interested in something long-term, seeing how CD Projekt Red is handling the competitive scene in Gwent? I mean, this is really the first tournament taking place on American soil. And it could be the predecessor or the basically the template for a lot of tournaments to come if it goes well.
So initially why they decided that they wanted to go through with this was that they were making a tournament series that they're having essentially a qualifier in Philadelphia, a qualifier in Chicago. This isn't, determined for Gwent yet, but it's different games. And they're having like a grand final in Washington, D.C. Now, if this event pops off correctly, that could be a reality for us. So that's why it's very important for everyone to tune in and give as much support as they can to the North American scene, because this could be the start of something very good.
I mean, ultimately, competitive scenes in games are really decided on the community's interest in it, and I think that we have Gwent Slam, which is a licensed event from CD Projekt Red, so we know the support is there, and of course, Gwent Open and Gwent Challenger are completely sanctioned, CD Projekt Red produced and hosted events. So we know what the tournament scene looks like from a top end point of view. But coming up from the bottom, I think that's the kind of stuff that is still going to be blossoming and growing as the game moves to like a more complete state. The core set is added, new game mode, single player, and then launch. And then we're going to start seeing these kinds of movements. And I like that we're kind of a step ahead here, as we're already kind of making these plans here for North America now. And hopefully things move forward. You're talking about the company Nerd Street Gamers, is that correct? That's what it is. And are they based in Philadelphia? If not, why Philadelphia? Is because you're from Jersey, I imagine New York would be closer. Are they set up exclusively in Philadelphia?
Well, I previously worked with them casting a Hearthstone tournament, and that's kind of how I started getting to know them. And I kept going up to their LAN center and talking to them. And at the time, I was just getting into Gwent. So, I wasn't good or anything. And then, I just started climbing up the ladder, and I kept them interested in the Gwent scene. So when I brought this idea up, they weren't against it. And, I garnered their trust enough that they decided to go through with it. So, like I said, I'm very happy with how everything's going. One thing I do want to add is that this is going to be unlike any other tournament you've seen, because it's going to be completely open. So we're of course going to put a player cap on it. It's going to start at 64. If we blow that out in a day or two, then we're going to add another 16 slots. But this is going to be completely open. So there's going to be no qualifiers. You come, you play. If you win, you get the prize.
So it's a walk-on tournament.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Anyone can play.
That's really interesting. Now I'm going to be there. So I'm saying that I don't know the answer to this question, but as far as a presentation of games point of view, you said you have Shu and Joe, and I mean, I'm sure other people will have like their streams hooked up. Are you planning on having different games on different streams for the whole event? Like you can watch multiple games. How is the presentation of a 64-person tournament going to be working exactly?
So we're gonna.
Or is that still logistically under?
No, we have everything planned out.
Awesome, okay.
We're just giving information in slots here. But we're gonna have the main stage. We're gonna have two matches going on at the same time on the main stage. So of course we're gonna try to slide the people who we know that the public wants to see on the main stage to get more people to the stream, obviously. But if a game ends, then all we're doing is we're hot swapping to the next game, and then we're sliding people into that slot. So there's really not going to be too many breaks. Obviously, you're going to take a break. That's why we have the subcasters. Yeah. But yeah, there's going to be no break. It's going to be pretty much 8-9 hours straight of just Gwent. Right. And it's going to be awesome.
Well, I'm familiar with that. As long as there's breaks.
there will be breaks.
I'm down with breaks. I'm down with breaks.
I promise you.
All right, cool. So yeah, I mean, like that sounds really great. I mean, we like the fact that it's an open tournament means we don't know who's going to be there. But are there invites? There's a lot of great players in North America, and there's a lot of great players that are kind of involved in this. I'm sure like some have been invited, some are very close on the East Coast, kind of clustered in here. There's some people coming in from Toronto, like myself. Some people coming in from New York. People coming in from Jersey, like you. People who are kind of home state. Pennsylvania, and there's like people, like we said, Joe Snow is going to be involved, Flake is going to be involved, like Pumpkin, you said Pumpkin's going to be going, SHUPE'S is involved. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people on the list right now, as well.
There's about 15 people who are like streamers or personalities that are guaranteed coming. So
okay, cool, and competing too,
pretty
right?
big. Yeah, competing or helping with logistics. I think about 10 of them are competing, and the other ones, like yourself, are either casting or helping me with the logistics side of things. But yeah, they're pretty much all going to be competing.
Awesome.
And Vishra's even flying in from Taiwan to come compete.
Yeah, that's huge, right?
It's going to be massive. It's going to be crazy.
Nice.
Planning a little home trip, Vishra. Going to be showing himself on the camera. It's been a while. We haven't heard from Vishra since Gwent Challenger. I mean, I've been talking to him. We've been talking to him. He's around. He's playing. But I mean, and he of course streams as well. But the fact that
and he's an Eagles fan.
He's an Eagles fan, apparently, judging by his new avatar on Discord. He does like himself some Eagles. NFL, right? Football, huck'em chuck'em football. I know what I'm talking about.
Hand egg.
Yeah, little hand egg. All right, well, I mean, if there's anything else you wanted to put any more info you wanted to put out there for the Wild Hunt Philadelphia Gwent Tournament, NoControl, the stage is yours. Then we're going to talk a little bit more about Gwent here.
Yeah, so like I said, sign-ups are going to open on Sunday. You want to be, if you want a ticket, from my understanding, what Joe and Pumpkin are telling me, they think it's going to sell out within 48 hours. So
I agree. I think so.
I would highly recommend you to be watching the stream on Sunday to register as soon as possible, as soon as the site pops up. If you want to come, if you want to compete, we're aiming for a $5,000 prize pool, and that seems reasonable. Pace top 8. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all that I have to tell you guys right now. Just tune in Sunday. Like I said, me, Joe, Pumpkin, and Shu are all going to be streaming from the venue. We'll be announcing when that site goes up. Yeah, this Sunday. January 7th.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So,
January 7th at what time?
I believe we're starting at 1 p.m. So from 1 p.m. till, I don't know, Joe wants to drink, and so does Pumpkin. So this could be a marathon.
And man.
Pretty
1 p.m.
crazy.
Eastern then.
Yeah. 1 p.m. Eastern time. I'm sorry.
1 p.m. Eastern. Okay.
Also, we are holding a crowdsourced prize pool. So if you guys want to donate to that, we're going to make I'm going to make Pumpkin and Joe do crazy stuff on stream whenever we hit certain thresholds. So to entice you guys to donate to the prize pool. Perfect. And I think that's pretty much all I got for you guys right now.
That's awesome. I'm actually really looking forward to this stream on Sunday. It sounds like a good time. Just hang out. I mean, I love IRL streams. When Gwent streamers do IRL streams, it's always like so much fun because you can get to know these people, right? All right. So that's great. Looking forward to the Wild Hunt Philadelphia tournament. I'm looking forward to the stream at 1 p.m. Eastern time, in which you will be live streaming and opening up ticket sales and doing stuff on stream for donations. It's going to be lots of fun. Very much looking forward to that. And then, of course, February 24th, 2018 is the tournament. So mark it on your calendars. There's a little bit more to talk about with Gwent. Just a quick one. I mean, this is kind of a quick thing, but on New Year's, the Pro Ladder just disappeared. You couldn't play it. So I could see, it was late. I saw it late in the day, Eastern time, and I saw Berja and Rafal were talking on Twitter, figuring it out, and it would have been late for them. So they took it pretty seriously. They're going to be extending the deadline for Pro Ladder qualifications for Gwent Open until January 4th, noon. But I mean, they handled it as best as they could. What do you think caused that? A little Y2K, a little type of just turning over the year, everything falls apart situation?
This is the first year where Pro Ladder has ticked over into a new year, and I think that maybe they just had a little Y2K problem where all the computers reset back to 2017, and they deleted the Pro Ladder for a second. Looks like they brought it back up almost as very quickly, and to make up for the lost time and to maybe grant just a little bit of extra time to those who had planned on grinding the end of it. They're extending it till noon on the 4th, so that's good for me trying to get in my my games to keep on the ladder.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? I mean, anybody who took, I actually don't know the entire, the full amount of time that it was down, but for anybody who had taken New Year's Eve off to grind on the Pro Ladder, I feel for them a little bit. NoControl, if you set time aside to grind for the Pro Ladder and you were really close and you were denied like that, how would that make you feel?
Honestly, more than anything, I felt bad for Berza and Rafal, because I'm sure they walked into a poop storm.
Yeah.
Or a buzz.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So more than anything, I just felt bad for them taking time for their New Year's to go ahead and do that. It's good that they extended it and dealt with it as quickly as possible. But that stinks.
Your qualifiers. So if we were to cut the Pro Ladder off right now, and I agree with you, I think that those guys are even though they're underappreciated, no matter what level of appreciation is that. The saying, like, whatever they're paying you, it's not enough. I feel like Berja and Rafal for sure are on overtime all the time. They have families, it's holiday time, but that must have been a little bit tough for those guys. So just sound the horn for Rafal and Berja. But the players that were grinding on Pro Ladder, if we were to end things right now, this is what the top 8 looks like right now. We got Adzikov on top of the ladder, no surprise there. He's already got a cottage built. He goes there all the time. He might as well just stay there. OM Hanachan taking it up. He's 1 point behind Adzikov, which is worth noting because Adzikov is usually heads and shoulders above. But Adzikov at 59.34, Hanachan at 59.33, and Game King is behind that. Koloman, Super JJ, Shmel, which is great. The Russian player Shmel, the guy who, I mean, you can't say this about a lot of people, but he is an original Gwent god. I remember around this time last year, we were talking to HG3 and Manti. Do you remember that episode, Greyboxer? We were talking to HG3 and Manti, and it was right before we went to Poland last year, and we were talking about Shmel being the Skellige god. So he's been a year later. We're going to see him. Maybe you can see him compete if he can stay on the top 8. But this is a guy who you could say pioneered the round 1 open pass. Like, lots of people do it, but he did it first. Like, I feel like he was first known for that. So really excited to meet Shmel. And then, of course, we have Shaggy and Tailbot. I mean, these players we know these players at this point. We know their stories for the most part. Shmel's got this kind of legacy behind him. How do we feel about this Pro Ladder? This would be a pretty good Gwent Open, I think. NoControl. What do you think about these guys?
Honestly, I played Shmel, I grinded pretty hard the other day, and I played him 3 or 4 times in the same day, and he did me dirty. he got me pretty good. I think the biggest surprise is that Tailbot's on, the last slot right now.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think it's going to be another good Gwent Open. Like I said, Shmel's a big surprise for me. Partially because I wasn't playing initially when he was quote unquote good, or when he was first introduced. So that's what I got.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
I was going to say that the surprise for me, if we're talking about the pro ladder, is that Life Coach isn't going to be in the top 8. And he posted on Twitter, hey, I'm because of personal reasons, I'm not going to be able to make the push at the end of this pro ladder. And I went and had a look at the rankings, and he's in 10th. But he's gapped at 75 points behind Tailbot in 8th. So that is an exceptional amount of games to go on a streak and win. So I'm kind of surprised that that we might not see Life Coach at the next Challenger. Or rather at the next Open. He is going to be invited to the next Masters, of course.
Yeah, so he'll be at the World Masters 100%. That's what winning a Challenger gets you. And if Life Coach won every Challenger, then there would be lots of spots open for crown points. But since Freddie won Challenger number 2, we know at least those 2 guaranteed people are going to be at the Masters, which will be in December of this year, 2018, as we are now in 2018. But then you make a good point that the Life Coach is pretty far behind Tailbot. Now, Mago GX is in there in between Tailbot and Life Coach. Mago's only 13 points behind Tailbot, but Mago notoriously is not able to attend these tournaments. And eventually that situation may change. We will get a chance to meet Mago, one of the best players, also playing out of Russia, like Schmel. But one of the best players in Gwent for the longest time. He's been one of the greatest. He's won lots of tournaments like online. But I don't think that he's able to make it. So that gap between Tailbot and Life Coach is a canyon for Life Coach. If he is able to do it, he does have 2 days left to really try. But I don't think in this situation, since Super JJ got so far ahead, there was a situation where they were kind of really close together. Like maybe one would be costing the other person a slot. It's not like that anymore, though. So that's what the ladder is looking like here. So that's like the state of Gwent right now at season end. It's been a little bit rocky last couple of weeks. I think there's been some bugs. Like I'm not going to go too into detail about these bugs, but there's been bugs with Amir, some bugs with Siri Nova, some bugs with like some lesser played cards like Panther and like Werewolf Alpha, like things spawning on the wrong side of the board and going the wrong place. Unfortunately, there's been some tooltips that haven't been lining up with card effects. There have been less serious gripes about artwork. There has been things about, card names. There have been things about runestones and spies, which is actually probably that's a little upper tier on how serious that is, because I also sometimes struggle with multiple. I mean, if you guys watch me stream today, anytime I played a spy, there's a spy played back. Summoning circle, they summoning circle it back, they decoy it back. It's just like there's spies all over the place. So
gross.
That's the landscape of like pro ladder play, at least at this point. NoControl, how do you feel about kind of the state of Gwent right now? Can you get past some of these issues? And there's an appreciation of the meta on some level, outside of maybe the fact that dwarves are crushing the ladder right now. But can you see past it a little bit? Are we looking forward to the balancing patch?
Well, I think this patch was really good, but it was good with a bunch of stuff on top of it that was bad. So if they can just fix the things, such as spies, such as the bugs that are happening with Siri Nova, et cetera, then you have a really good patch under there. You do. It exists. They just have to fix the few issues. Iflin's also a huge issue right now. I don't even know if it's dwarfs carrying their own deck or if it's Iflin carrying Scoia'tael. Like I honestly can't tell. I think that's how strong Iflin is right now.
She's pretty strong.
Yeah.
I'm on record saying that I didn't think she was that crazy, and I'm eating my words every time it's played against me, I think. And I don't
know if it's a Tremors or an Iflin problem, but regardless, it's still an issue that needs to be fixed.
Iflin has been changed every single patch, right? Every patch she's been changed. So I think the issue is probably with Iflin. Like the fact that she's playing something twice. Like how do you balance? I mean, we've got her down to 2 points. Like she's 2 strength now. She still does the double spells, but they increased the power of these bronze spells that were kind of holding her back. Like Alzur's Thunder was, she was a 12-point play with the double zap. Stammelford's wasn't really a decision because it wasn't as good as it is now, in that it only hits the opponent's side of the. Stammelford's is another card that has changed a ton of times. Like it was your side only, or sorry, it was opponent's side only, and then it was both sides, and then they added the Earth Elemental, and then they had to change how that worked. So it's been really wild for both of those cards. Yeah, so I mean, but I think it's the fact that every single one of those, every card you play in the Dwarf deck is like 13 to 20 points, like every single card.
Yeah.
Yeah,
really
I think we'll probably talk about Dwarves a little bit in the strategy section. I think being one of the king decks to climb with, we're seeing multiple pro ladder climbers with over 1,500 MMR with Squatel, likely with a similar deck with the Value Town Dwarves.
For sure. And your reacclimation to Gwent Greyboxer, I know we talked about it at the top of the show, but as far as like the stuff that, you know, the people that are talking about, like losing artworks, different card names, some abilities changing, how has it been kind of getting back in with like the stuff that's really changed? Because we talk about how a lot of times doing this work is about forgetting the stuff you used to know, not as much as learning new things.
Yeah, I mean, I sat down with my kegs, popped them open, picked everything I didn't have any of, and there was a lot. I ended up having to craft a lot to build a full test deck with Siri Nova Bomb, and I ended up really enjoying the new interface and you know, being able to go into a game and sort of know how Northern Realms worked really helped. But mostly, there's so many changes. I have to reread almost every single card's text, and you know, fortunately with the Gwent tracker like Gwent Up, I'm able to see the the card's strength and that kind of thing. And I'm able to sort of, you know, okay, that's what's in my deck, and I have to work with whatever is left with my Reaver Scout and stuff like that. Because so many names have changed, it really does feel like a sort of like a completely refreshed game. And they've really pulled this on us a number of times, McBeard. I'm really shocked that they're able to continually reinvent the game. And although some people are complaining about some things that are missing, and I am too. I mean, I really miss some of the cool trio artworks and stuff like that were you know, you always had a hard time putting them correctly on your board with the positioning patch, but otherwise they're pretty cool, right?
The positioning patch, like even talking about stuff like that, how you used to just not be able to position your cards at all. There used to be no cards that affected adjacency of things, or like they're like gold cards used to be immune to all things. Then at one point they were not, but then it was like kind of middle ground. You didn't know what hurt gold and what didn't. They wanted to do consistency. So I mean, like, of all the changes that they have made, and I thought the gold, man, when they did the gold immunity patch, I didn't know, man. I didn't know how, like, I felt really, I was really conflicted with that change. But I feel like I am actually surprised at a patch that brings in this many new cards, a couple new mechanics, and like new archetypes, new leaders, that this was the patch that had the most turmoil around it, when like core mechanics relatively were the same. A lot of it was just UI changes, and the bugs, obviously, like, I'm not going to say that the bugs are okay, but like the stuff like whereas fundamentally the game didn't change all that much, but there's been more widespread discussion, good and bad, like a really, like, it's been a lot of very interesting to open up Gwent every day and see what people are saying. Open up Reddit every day and see what people are saying about Gwent. So I mean, it's really interesting. It's really interesting that it's being taken like this. But there was some positive news. Wait, I'm gonna let you speak though, Greyboxer.
Yeah, I was gonna say just one positive thing before we carry on to the Gwent winning an award, a very coveted award that maybe I'd never heard of yet. But I think that you have to remember, you know, ages ago, the beginning of the year, how many cards are we promised in 2017, and how many cards did we get? I
mean, I'm remembering that it's 500, and I'm looking at the full collection.
It
is 500. Well, we got it. They met their ambitious deadline, right?
Exactly. And while they had to maybe cut a few corners at the end to make sure they met it, they kept the promise. And I think people are missing that, McBeard. I think that's you rushed this patch, blah 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 blah. Well, I mean, they're making a promise to give you so many cards and to provide this many cards for the game. And if a couple of them aren't perfected yet, the diamond in the rough is that this is a company that seems to be really, backing up its own words. So, stay tuned.
Yeah, I mean, and when we say cutting corners, like, that's not really a jab. I mean, there's lots of cards in the game that don't have premium artwork.
Bugs.
So like that's like an example right there. Like,
it's cutting corners is what it is, you know?
Yeah, it's dealing with a bottleneck of artwork, perhaps. Maybe some of the, some time could have been spent, a little bit more time could have been spent in making sure that everything was clean as far as like abilities going off correctly. But I feel like when you look at the stuff that's working and that's good compared to the stuff that's bad, it's definitely on the positive side. I think now we can say that. It's just, I'm really looking forward to the beginning of the next season to see what happens here. But there was some positive news. A very popular YouTuber, this is a guy with over 1 million subscribers, which is, when you talk about like, you know, the population of the world or even the population of America. 1 million is still small, but for a YouTuber, it's still very sizable. A really great YouTuber named VatiVidya was got a lot of recognition by the Gwent subreddit right now about giving Gwent his game of the year. He has a really, really great video. He goes through all sorts of video games, but he has a special section devoted to card games, how he felt about starting off with Hearthstone, then moving to Duelist, and ultimately getting to Gwent, to ultimately give Gwent his game of the year in his review video. A lot of people saw it. A lot of people loved it. The video will be posted. The link is in the show notes when you are listening to this later, when this is posted on the podcast feed. But it was a great video, and I really thought that, I mean, it was an outside voice. I felt like I have never talked to this person, or I've not known this person before, but he has a large following, and he was saying stuff that really resonated with me. And was a nice reminder of all the reasons we love Gwent. Did you watch have you watched this video? Greyboxer, you watched it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I love this guy. He's really big into Dark Souls, and he does a lot of Dark Souls lore videos. And so this is hugely interesting to me because I've played Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, Bloodborne, all that stuff. I'm obsessed with this game. And you know what's funny is that this guy's one of the most popular YouTubers for Dark Souls, and he really gets into the game and the lore. And if you remember talking with the CD Projekt guys, this is one of their favorite games is Dark Souls. And so to hear a guy who's really into Dark Souls give Gwent the Dark Souls of card games award, yeah, right. I think it's pretty exceptional. So I'm pretty pumped for this, and I just put the link into the Twitch chat for your bookmarking pleasure, in case you don't want to wait for the podcast to go live.
Hopefully that link shows up. I have to turn off links in my chat sometimes because there's spam bots that come in and put in like malware links. So I will also copy and paste that right now so that goes into the chat perfectly. NoControl, did you get a chance to watch this video? If you didn't, we can just move past it.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, that's fine.
I haven't watched it yet.
It works. He's a mod. Okay, cool. We have it. Yeah. We have the link in the chat. So anyway, it was just a nice, it was a nice, refreshing look. Like a lot of people looked at the video and got started with Gwent from that video. We saw it on the Reddit as well. Like people posting saying, "Hey, I kind of didn't even know this game was around or that good." So good on you, VatiVidya. I thought it was a great video. I mean, I think that's kind of your top stories right now for Gwent. It's going to be a lot to talk about for the next podcast as we go into a new season of Gwent. But for now, I want to talk a little bit about the meta as we're looking at it. There's a lot of people that are pushing for Grandmaster right now. A lot of people trying to secure those borders, a little border security. So I think it's really interesting right now to talk about the meta because there are only 6-ish days left to play on the ladder for for Grandmaster, for that border. So let's talk a little bit of strategy and the metagame right now, right after this.
Maybe not today and not tomorrow, but someday someone will find a way to take you down.
So you've probably been on the ladder and you've probably gotten used to seeing a couple of decks be pretty popular, but I don't think any deck has been more popular in recent times than the current dwarf deck. There are variations of this deck as well. There's lots of things you can slot in and out, and the deck is still titanically strong. They are really, really dominant. Greyboxer, how have you felt about the newest style of dwarves, being such a Mahakam supporter yourself?
As I drink my beer and my ale out of my horn. No, I think that dwarves are doing what they have always done, right? They're Guy Fieri's one-way ticket to Value Town, and I think that they're able to build up so much power with all these giant bronze units, and the agitators are doing quite a lot of work as well. Some people are running Nova Bomb with this, and I think that's insane. I keep calling it Nova Bomb because I've been playing Destiny 2. My apologies.
Well, it is a bomb, right? It is a bomb card.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but I think that it's just one of those really tough to beat decks because of the amount of value it can build, and the finisher it has with Hattori into Barclay is still there. Right when Hattori was introduced to the game, that was the prime target, still is. So, I mean, I've only seen this a few times on Pro Ladder so far, and I've done kind of okay against it. I don't know if they didn't draw exactly what they wanted to draw, but it was usually a very close match with me trying to maximize my armor value, because armored Northern Realms with Nova is similar to dwarves in that way. But yeah, I think this is a deck that you're going to see a ton of on the ranked ladder right now, especially, is what I'm hearing. And I don't know, McBeard, what do you feel about some techs against these dwarves? You think marigolds could make a comeback?
I mean, if you can force them to stack, I mean, it depends on what you play. I've played a couple of games against dwarves today where they will stack. I was playing weather. I was playing Ocean Mud's because it's a full moon today, so I was playing Ocean Mud's full moon Siri Nova Aridin that gets you can get like multiple rows ticking with frost or the full moon. So I enjoyed that. I feel like engine decks tend to thrive against tempo, where tempo decks tend to maybe beat control, and then control comes around and beats engine decks. So I usually recommend engine decks, and I think that there are some situations where maybe just passing on them with the blue coin, because I mean the Ninth Circle of Hell definitely has blue coin dwarves living on it. It is so hard to beat that. NoControl, what makes the dwarf deck so hard to beat, really, in your opinion?
It's just because every play that they have is 1,000,000 points.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. Like they just plop big stuff on the board and say, okay, deal with it, please. And then even if you blow a Scorch, even if you're running 3 Scorches like the Reveal Nilfgaard list does,
yeah,
usually it's not even enough.
Yeah.
So I think that's the big issue. And what we're starting to see is like dwarves versus the world. So you're just seeing a bunch of decks that are attempting to beat dwarfs, and then dwarfs attempting to just beat these decks. And that's pretty much it.
It's kind of just how it's kind of like your deck, like dwarves are the mirror reflecting back at you. Like, can you beat dwarves?
Yeah.
Yes or no? And that's kind of how you can gauge the success on the ladder right now, because they're pretty dominant. And like we're talking about Greyboxer, you talked about like techs and like marigolds and stuff like that. NoControl, you talk about adding Scorches for the big units. But it's still like the fact that dwarves still have, I wouldn't say like the worst matchup is 50-50 for dwarves. Like I feel like that makes it it makes it an oppressive deck on the ladder where you can't really tech enough against it to the point where I don't even know if there's like a deck that you could build that could surefire beat it. Like there have been decks in the past. I mean, there is like a mill variant that seems to really enjoy dining on dwarves a little bit. But I think that secret's out at this point. So I don't know if it's going to work anymore.
That deck only exists because Swears is still a card, and the only you just play Swears and you dump all the dwarves to the graveyard, and then usually you can pull it out from there. But the issue with that mill deck is that pretty much against every other deck you're unfavored.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Yeah.
So you really gotta pick your poison. Are you either gonna try to beat dwarves and not beat everything else, or try to beat everything else and not beat dwarves? That's just how it is right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. Like it's kind of like the approach to a tournament where you're trying to beat weather. You put a whole bunch of weather clears in your deck, but if you don't go up against weather, you have below average bronzes in your deck that you have to deal with. So like it's kind of the same thing. If you need to, it's really hard to just go ahead and tech. Now Swears is not bad in there's matchups where it's still okay if that aren't dwarves. But it's harder. Like big decks like Skellige, they'll just take it right out of their graveyard. It maybe hinders them. Exactly. It hinders them in like a short round 3, maybe a little bit. But it's really hard to tap out every res for Skellige, and it works on some level. But dwarves are they're really strong. But what I find very interesting is because this dwarf deck exists in the new meta that came after the 100 cards, which was current to this ranked season. If there is any adjustments that will be made to this dwarf deck going into the next ranked season, we may never see this iteration of dwarves take place in a tournament, because there could be some balancing changes that destroy this deck. So this deck could live and die outside of any sort of any competition outside of the actual grind on pro ladder. I think that's really interesting for a deck that maybe like this deck is. We were talking about decks that could be worse than this deck in situations like closed beta, like before Old Monster Nest, having like the 4 or 5 neckers that carry over to like 30 points, and some of the stuff that old Scoia'tael used to do with buffing resilient units. Like those were really, really bad decks for the meta. This one is kind of up there. It's going to be on the leaderboard for decks we hated, I think.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I don't feel that strongly about it, but that's maybe because I haven't. I've been playing more pro ladder than ranked mode, and I think that ranked mode is infested with them.
Yeah, I'm right below. I think I'm at like 44.75 on ranked. I actually was about to hit Grandmaster, and I lost to Petrify because I bricked a PAULIE. But anyway,
whoops.
Yeah, It's just dwarfs after dwarfs after dwarfs, whether it's a SHUPE variant or whether it's, you know, the Mahakam Guard variant or the Skirmisher variant or Mahakam and Skirmisher variant.
Or the Smuggler variant, like...
Or the Smuggler, yeah, it's all like, it's all bundled together. I'd say about 60 or 70% of the games that I'm playing are against dwarfs right now.
Yeah,
it's pretty insane. It's almost as bad as like last patch closed beta Dagon.
Yeah, Dagon has had this role in the past, and you know there was a Gwenelman snapshot around that time where the top lists were Dagon. Top 3 decks were all Dagon decks, different Dagon decks, but there was still Dagon decks. So it's really interesting how, you know, we have some meta games where one deck is on top, one deck is like the tier, you call it tier 0 or tier S, whatever you want to call it, but it stands alone on its own stage, and then everything below it would be good if that other deck didn't exist to lord over all other decks. And I remember Greyboxer when we were talking about that meta where we said like Dagon was merciful in that, you know, he was keeping a meta in check where even though Dagon was the best, he wasn't so far ahead that other decks were like just basically can it be Dagon or not. And it was like Dagon was a benevolent leader over the pro ladder, whereas I feel like the dwarves are tyrannical right now. It's just you must be able to beat dwarves, or you might as well just play them. If you can't beat them, join them.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing some Nilfgaard do some work against dwarves, maybe with those Viper Witchers. Is okay.
Yeah, Alchemy's pretty cool. I like the Alchemy.
That's a really cool deck. I think that is you know, it's a new enough patch that archetype might not be fully fleshed out yet, and that could be something that could work against these dwarves. But yeah, Trial of the Grasses would be pretty sick. There's some things you can do.
Yeah, I think it's just like it's just the short game and the long game for dwarves are just like every card you have, like if you don't have as much value as you have, like if you don't have a card on them, it's over. Like it's really just over. Like the last card will sink you. I mean, you look at a meta like this where we have like kind of one ruler right now. I think we're all in agreement. The dwarves are on that tier 0 stage at this point, but we've had metas where there's been multiple top decks. Maybe some decks, like you look at a deck, we're talking about countering dwarves and how you'd have to basically like butcher your deck to beat dwarves against every other matchup. Where there are other metas where you build a tech against the top deck, but the other deck can support itself so well with that tech that it starts to rise and push down the other one. So you get to see more of a leapfrogging effect on what's the best, and hopefully like a rock paper scissors situation where you have good decks rotating in and out, and that's kind of like the balance that I would hope that Gwent is seeking to achieve. There's always going to be a best deck, but hopefully there's always something that puts the other deck down that doesn't, you know, it doesn't hurt too bad. Right now I don't think we're there yet. What do you think? Like, let's do a little bit of patch prediction right now. We're not making suggestions to the dev team. We're not going to armchair develop and say like the stuff that we think is going to be the best thing for Gwent. More so, what do we think the changes are going to be? Kind of based on how runestones are interacting with spies, how dwarves are dominating the meta. Those are the main things I think that people are talking about the most. I think that spies working off runestone, that is going to be a developer's choice. That's a design choice. They may not think that that's broken, whereas they're probably going to look at dwarves, the win rate and the play rate, and they're probably going to say, we got to do something about this, perhaps. That's what I think so far. I hope that spies are at least addressed in some way, and if they don't change it, I hope they can reason it with us. But what do you think? Let's start with NoControl. What do you think that they could do to dwarves to make them just a little bit less potent? Where do you shave the points off?
Yeah, like I said before, obviously dwarves is just slamming a lot of points on the ground or on the board, but Ithlan Tremors is one of the you know, biggest things that that is making that deck broken, really. So I don't know if it's going to be a Tremors or Ithlan nerf or what's going to go on, but I think that definitely needs to happen.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, Ithlan definitely with Tremors, like in a long round, it just basically seals the deal for you. And you know, some decks don't just necessarily run it with the Stammelford's Tremors, now just known as Tremors, but also can run it with the Elzer's Thunder, which can also be used to eliminate engines in some situations, or just do a double shutdown in some case. 9 damage is pretty good. So you get her, you know, it's just, you know, 16 strength, you'll take it if it means you're actually disrupting strategy. Outside of that, Tremors is just really, really strong. It going off twice is just, it's pretty crazy right now. So I would say that. I think that also, me personally, I think that they could probably shave off a point maybe on agitators. I think when you look at stuff like Reaver Scouts and what they do at 1 point, and you look at stuff like Hamey Battle Maidens and what they do, 2 points, but they also do 1 point of damage. Agitators being 2, 3 with Dennis Cranmer seems like that's a lot of extra value that they're getting for a card that allows them to play lots of good bronzes and then still have those bronzes later for round 3. Like, it's pretty strong right there. Greyboxer, what do you think? Do you think agitators are one of the biggest problems?
Yeah, I mean, if you touched on a little bit what the comparison to Reaver Scouts there. Think about how often a Reaver Scout's going to brick. Okay. Yeah. Because it's often. Unless you have, just a pretty decent board state and you're using them early. If you try to use a Reaver Scout late, you might really be in trouble and have a 1 strength bronze to play. Whereas agitators almost always have some dwarf left in your deck to play, and they don't even play it; they just make a copy of it. So while they don't do the thinning. That is the advantage, I guess, of the Reaver Scout. They also have the versatility and the reliability of almost always, spawning a copy of one of your dwarves. And so they have almost a baseline higher strength than Reaver Scouts. And the only trade-off is that they don't thin your deck. Well, decks are almost efficient enough anyway without needing to thin them. So we're seeing a 3 power with Dennis, Dwarven Agitator being exceptional, because Dennis is effectively giving them each 2 power because they're adding to the strength of the dwarf that they're spawning. So I think it's a point to look at, right? It's somewhere that you can maybe shave off 1 point off the Dwarven Agitator and make it match the Reaver Scout. Can't go any lower than that though.
Yeah. You can't, unless you want to make it a disloyal card, but that wouldn't make any sense, I think, because the Dwarven Agitator is in there to inspire and entice the Dwarves. And one thing I will say, that as much as I'm starting to despise the Dwarven Agitator, I will say that I do like the new voice lines they added to that card. And the Aspirin, aka the Knight Elect, and the Warcrier. Also, like, a lot of cards that were sharing voice lines got to get their own identity, and I think the Dwarven Agitator got that for sure. But I mean, I think maybe the Skirmishers might be a little on the high side, or I think that maybe the Skirmishers could go for boosting as opposed to strengthening. So playing them later on, you're not playing like 13, 15-point Skirmishers. NoControl, what do you think about changing? I feel like it's kind of a relic. Why do they still strengthen? Mahakam Guard doesn't strengthen anymore. A lot of Skellige cards don't even strengthen anymore. Why do we need strengthening on the Skirmishers?
I don't know, because, I mean, if you think about it, strengthening feels like something a dwarf would do, right?
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
I mean, that it doesn't seem unrealistic that a dwarf would strengthen, but I understand what you're saying, that a lot of cards just don't strengthen anymore. I think outside that, we got, like, Nausicaa Brigade and, like...
Yeah.
I can't even think about anything else that strengthens off of a play effect. But, I think your idea of boosting might be pretty good. Of course, nerf Paul, or indirectly nerf PAULIE, and that might be the solution that they will want to be looking forward to for the next patch. But who knows? I just know that they need to do something to keep them in check, because I'm tired of 60% of my games being against dwarves.
Yeah, and I mean,
a couple fingers on the scale would help.
Yeah, a couple fingers on the scale. Yeah, PAULIE DAHLBERG was one of the cards they added recently to the game. PAULIE DAHLBERG makes Scoia'tael the best resurrection faction now. Somehow they just kind of said, move over Skellige. It's our turn right now. And PAULIE DAHLBERG, the 3 power, 4 power with Dennis, resurrect a non-support bronze dwarf, which is fine because all the best ones are not supports. It's it's such a huge power play. You can resurrect. These Skirmishers come out at 10 points when you resurrect them, because they've already strengthened themselves with, you've already strengthened them with Dennis Cranmer. That strengthening is fine, I think. And then you've strengthened it again by playing the Skirmisher, so now it's 10 points. And then you play it again. PAULIE DAHLBERG coming down at 4 points, 10 strength Skirmisher, boosts up to 13, and also does 3 damage to your board. It's a monstrous card. And the fact that you also run Decoy in this deck means you can play PAULIE more than once, which is pretty nuts. I think that PAULIE is probably another problem card.
Stubborn.
Maybe make him stubborn. I mean, making him stubborn would be inconsistent with every other card that resurrects, though. Like, you can decoy Phrase, you can decoy Sigdrifa.
That's true.
It would be a little weird that you would give that treatment to Scoia'tael specifically and might not be consistent. But I think that any way we can indirectly or directly nerf PAULIE would probably help, I think.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
So yeah, that's where I'm at. That's kind of where I think that they probably might attack dwarves. But I think that dwarves being competitive in just a sheer tempo way, I just think that maybe some more strategy needs to be applied. That maybe you need to make certain decisions in round 1 that affect your round 3. Because right now it's just play a dwarf, right? Just play a dwarf, play a dwarf.
What's funny about Paulie is when I initially saw the card, I was like, I don't think this card is going to be too relevant because like nobody really plays dwarves. And now we're here. Fast forward a few months later, and it's like overrun like rats.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, that's those are some good ideas, I think, when we're talking about where we're going to change dwarves. But outside of that, like, what about spies? How do we feel about spies right now? Spies coming out of runestones. Spies, Summoning Circle Spy has been around for a while, but spies coming out of runestone creating multiple spies. The issue is multiple spies. But how do you solve it? Do you make what kind of situation do you put in where you can be guaranteed that a spy is only played once? Can't come from runestones, maybe doesn't come from Summoning Circle either. Like, where's the real problem zone? Was it fine before runestone, or did we just kind of get over Summoning Circle? What do you think, NoControl?
Well, I think we should back it up a little bit, because if everybody can make 3 spies, then basically if everything's overpowered, nothing's overpowered, right?
Yep.
So if you have the ability to make 3 spies, is that really an issue in the first place? And I'm partially playing devil's advocate here because I don't want spies to be able to be created. But if every deck has the ability to do it, is it really an issue? Now, it does also give you a reason to run Gigny or Scorch just to blow them off the board and then essentially be 2 cards up or 1 card up or whatever on an empty board. But I think the solution is just not making spies creatable. I think the Summoning Circle is fine only because it's always been that way. Summoning Circle has always been able to do that. I don't think that's an issue. I just think the main issue comes from being able to create spies. And the cards that you are able to create spies off of, you have a pretty decent chance of actually getting it. Like him, you have a 50% chance.
Yeah.
Outlaw, you have I think it's like 35% chance. So you have a pretty decent chance of getting that extra card. So if they're just able to take those percentages away and make spies not creatable, I think that solves the issue at hand.
They need to make that super clear, though, right? That they need to make it very, very clear that create is.
Or you just say loyal.
Loyal, yeah, but that hurts Nilfgaard a little bit, right? Runestone can't pull Joachim anymore. It's tricky, right? They really have to approach this, I think, very carefully. Greyboxer, what do you think about spies right now?
Well, it depends, because spies have been a part of Gwent for a really long time. They've been a part of Witcher 3 Gwent since the inception of Gwent, and they form one of the last bastions of what Gwent's identity is, and that's the ability to use card advantage to win. Mm-hmm. And there's a huge trade-off. The trade-off is that you're playing 13 points under your opponent's board, and you gain a card advantage out of that. A couple of these things are being abused right now. Obviously with these create mechanics, right? So the runestones are obviously a problem. And I think right now that maybe the problem is it could be engine based, where the runestones are creating any faction card, and of course the spies are a faction card, so they might need to say create any monstrous card except a spy or something like that. But some cards that were clearly designed with being used with the spy in mind. Obviously him, which is very associated with Udalric. Mm-hmm. In fact, the hymn is what cursed Udalric.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is using, it's super canon. You can't just get rid of that interaction.
Yeah.
So I think there's some things that need to be looked at. I think Runestone is the place to start. I think that the engine is the limitation right now, and they should be able to do a keyword sort of limitation on the creating of spies with Runestones. Being able to decoy spies, I think, should still be okay, but that might be something they look at making them stubborn, right?
It's so risky to do that, so I think that's probably fine.
Yeah.
And I think for me, my solution, I have my extreme solution and I have my conservative solution. The extreme solution was just musing what if spies were gold cards. That was my extreme conclusion. But I think the more reasonable thing is, make Runestone. This fixes almost every problem, and I would love if anybody in the chat, of course, anybody wants to send me a message on commanderstonepodcast@gmail.com or tweet at me, but I think that one of the best solutions you could have is have runestones work like Elven Scouts, summon silvers that are not in your deck. Because that means that I can still get Wakim if I'm playing Nilfgaard, and it also means that the monster's runestone is much worse than every other runestone because the crones are on the runestone. So if you actually wanted to run crones, this is just an extra supporting argument. If you wanted to run crones, you could run the runestone and you wouldn't pull the crones. So the runestone would actually be good for you. So it's like there's that kind of, I don't know why crones are they feel archaic at this point in the game. I feel like because silvers are so good. Sometimes it's just thinning is good, silvers are good. Running 3 slots for the crones is. You don't like that, Greyboxer? You don't like that idea?
No, that's it. I mean, so think about why runestones were created as cards. Okay, the card pool just exploded. There's tons and tons of cards, and the only way you're gonna get cards, and I'm missing a ton of them right now from my collection because I spent a ton on premiums. Is to buy kegs. So if you're playing a special card that plays a card that you don't have, but that exists for your faction, that's one way to get someone playing Gwent to test out new cards that they don't have, that they might want to get a couple kegs to crack. I don't know. That's my thought. Business side.
So on that, why not just not play a spy in your deck then? I don't know what the exact numbers are on silvers in a faction right now, but why don't you just not play a spy and then you use the runestone as like a flex slot almost? So you're able to get a card that, it could be a spy, but it could be something else that you need right there. I think that's a viable solution. I think that's a good idea, McBeard.
I'm like really hoping that that's what happens. I'm really hoping that that's what happens with the runestones, because by not playing a spy, you're taking a risk that you don't have the spy that you might need to get card advantage. But by playing the spy, your runestone now doesn't create a second spy. And, no one's runestone would. And the runestones are really popular right now in almost every faction except for monsters for the reasons that I mentioned before. I just kind of hope they go with that one there. So that's those are the two big things, right? Dwarves and spy runestone. Like I don't hear a lot of other griping that I feel like is super relevant. Like the only other things that I hear that matter, I think, to me are that certain archetypes need more support. But I think that, here's a question. If you guys don't have an answer for this question, I'm gonna pose it anyway. But if dwarves were to get nerfed, let's say dwarves cooled off completely, what rises up? What would be something else that they should probably be looking at? Hopefully, like if dwarves don't cloud their vision completely, and they also look at other decks that may thrive in a world where dwarves go down. For me personally, I think Consume has an incredible amount of tempo, and actually in a lot of situations can take on dwarves in the tempo game. But then again, I did play this like a week ago, so maybe dwarves get even better than the last week. But I think that, friend of the show, obviously, Delta 65, he played Consume to Grandmaster, and he also believed that Consume is pretty crazy on tempo with Forktails, Harpy Eggs, Erica's Queen, spawning the Erica's Behemoths being 20 points sometimes, the drones coming out, lots of really big tempo plays that are, that doesn't seem that bad when dwarves are there. But if dwarves were gone, would Consume perhaps rise up? That's what I think might happen. I don't know about NoControl. Maybe you have an idea of what might rise up.
Well, something that I find kind of funny is with the rise of dwarves, the bears have gone back into hibernation. There's been a lot less bears that I've seen, so it could be the bears come back. Another thing that I think is that the Henselt hero power. I say hero power. I know I'm a dirty Hearthstone X player. The Henselt hero power in of itself is very easily breakable. Especially with Winch now being introduced and being able to put machines back into your deck, and then with Naneki, and then hero powering out 6 of any machine, that could potentially be super breakable. So I think there's a few different decks that could rise when dwarves get nerfed, which is obviously very good because we want deck diversity and everything like that. But those are my 2 thoughts.
I know, Greyboxer, if you've played enough to weigh in on this one.
Yeah, I think Consume will be there. I think that maybe dwarves hold Consume back because they're able to do what Consume wants to be able to do, but better. And then Consume will be able to, they did really mess with carryover and stuff like that with the last patch, but I know that Consume would be a go-to deck for a lot of people who were looking for that fix after dwarves go down.
Yeah, I like the bears in hibernation thing. Makes a lot of sense. It's true. Bears were the first deck that seemed like really crazy until dwarves kind of came around and walked into our lives as they did. So I mean, I think that there's some stuff that they could look at potentially. I think that maybe some support might be given. I don't know if there's. I feel like when you look at a sample size like this, it's probably a lot clearer to see the stuff that's out of control rather than the stuff that needs more love.
The stuff that has no control.
Yeah, the stuff that has no control, right? No control. Well played, well played. As far as like any predictions like outside of this stuff, I'm not sure if anybody has any. I know that there's still like lots of robust deck building opportunities out there when you want to play casually on the pro ladder. If you're able to do that, that's what I do personally. I still get to run into a lot of great players and I get to test out decks, and it's actually a really good time on stream these days to play on the pro ladder. So you don't run into dwarves all the time, and I hope I don't ever lose my spot on the pro ladder. So I'm playing a bunch of games right now, but if anybody has any other ideas of what might change, what might be coming in the new patch.
Well, one of the things I did notice about this patch is that slamming big things on the board and then making them bigger, or consume bears and dwarves all have the same thing that they're trying to accomplish, essentially, right? Mm-hmm. So, just play big things and then make them bigger. I think that's the key to this patch right now.
Yeah, I think that there's going to always, like, tempo decks are always going to be like that, I think. It's some way or another. So I don't think that changing that is going to change much. Like, I think that there always needs to be tempo decks. There always needs to be decks that can do control. I think control rises and falls in viability depending on what else is out there. I feel like it kind of really hinges on the meta, whereas tempo can usually tempo feels like aggro, right? Like, it's just like, I'm going to get to my win as fast as I possibly can. But with Gwent, it's weird because there's no hero health totals that you can burn down. So tempo feels like the closest to aggro, whereas control feels like control. That doesn't really change. And engine stuff is usually about, can I execute my strategy or can't I? So tempo, I feel like, will always have that aggro kind of concept where I'm going to play it as hard as I can play it, and the meta is going to dictate if it's going to work or not, or if I can just get it tempoed or not. So I think that it's fine that those decks are out there. I think it's just not necessarily fine that they can just throw haymaker after haymaker no matter what round, what card you're playing. So there needs to be, I don't know, there needs to be some drawback of some kind. But I'm not a designer. I'm not really. I mean, I've given my thought on the Runestone. I think it's a good idea, but outside of that, I mean, it's going to be in the devs' hands, I think. So let's go. Let's talk to the chat a little bit. You posed a really good question, Greyboxer. We're going to get into that in just a second, of course. But we do these live shows. It's always good to talk to the chat. So we'll be talking to you guys. Just a quick break. So Greyboxer, you put a pretty good question here in the liner notes that we have here. You want to pose this question to the chat here?
Yeah, I basically said, this is the first podcast of 2018, guys. What do you want to see out of Gwent in 2018? And there's been some posts online about this already, and I want to hear what chat has to say. And the first response was from Shadow Chick Gwent, who says she wants to see engines again, and it's because there's a lot of potentially good engine decks that just can't run because they can't stay on the board. And I wonder, we're getting some feedback.
A little feedback, I think, maybe from, it could be NoControl side. I'm not
sure.
Could be. If the mic is rubbing against something.
It's likely.
Sorry.
It's likely the cause that some of these bronze cards have had their value ticked up, such as Elzer's is able to kill a lot more units than it used to be able to kill, and some of the deploy effects on other cards have more significant damages. So you're seeing less and less engines, and that sort of setup that you can build with engines is really I think important to this game, and that they're supporting this archetype, an archetype with machines or engines of other types such as Imperial Enforcers, those kinds of things. That sort of archetype does have a place in Gwent, and it should come back. So hopefully you're right. We see that again in 2018.
Yeah, for sure. Nilfgaard Spies is kind of like the premier engine deck. I mean, I personally like running aspirants and trebs in a deck that I run a deck that's basically all about abusing Stennis, playing Stennis, decoying Stennis, rezzing Stennis, sourcing Stennis almost like very, very reliably in round 1 to get those engine pieces out and still have tempo that can actually compete. It's an armor-based build. Like I said, I was playing a full moon weather hybrid earlier today. Like, those are actually decks that I really like, because when you have a deck that's very proactive and not very reactive, your engine pieces can stick around. It's when people start introducing control elements to mess with you, that's when it gets tough. So I think that there's always going to be kind of decks that like really focus on one of those 3 things, and then of course hybrids between them. But there's also another question that you had in the show notes here, where you asked, what do we want to get back in 2018? Something that we maybe lost that we hope comes back. So we're talking about perhaps trio art, perhaps how some cards function, perhaps. So maybe in the chat, let us know what you want to have back. And I'm going to take this time while you guys think of stuff you want to have back, just to let you know that, once again, we are supported by our commandos. Our patrons at patreon.com/commandorshorn. This week, we'd like to welcome Carolus P, Gray, and Shadow Chick, who is just in the chat as well. Thanks so much for supporting our content, keeping the podcast ad-free. NoControl, what do you feel that Gwent lost in the patch, if you feel that they lost anything at all, and what would you like to have back?
I feel like there's a lot of intricacies lost. The game used to be a lot more intricate, especially when units were tied to rows, and it feels like a little that luster of the extra layer of skill, so to speak, is lost, and that kind of disappoints me a little bit. I'd rather have row-locked units, so you have to play around certain things. But back then it did feel a lot more like a chess match than a card game. I still think it's more towards chess than a card game right now, but I feel like it lost that extra layer of luster that the game used to have. I don't think it's there anymore.
Fair enough. I mean, there is some intricacy that was changed. True Delta, I'm going to get the name full incorrect here. True Delta 65 in the chat. Rolock, he's a player that's been really outspoken about the quote-unquote agility change, the changes to cards that are put on specific rows. That's all gone now. We're seeing people that want Death Monkey 1984 is saying he wants gold immunity back. I don't agree. I actually think they made the right choice. I think that's probably the most wrong I have ever felt. Not even that I was super outspoken about. I wasn't super outspoken about gold immunity, but it felt in my heart, it felt bad when I heard that it was changing. And I'm okay with it now. I'm totally okay with it now. But that's like the most wrong I felt. So I feel like I haven't been very knee-jerk about anything after feeling how gold immunity was good. Lots of people are saying, got Lime Sound here saying Quen. Now I know Quen is something that's an interesting one, because Quen was pretty big. In Spell Squaetel, and there are some cards that came out recently that could really work really well with Quen, maybe possibly like Ice Troll, stuff that works with dueling, where you basically don't have to take that hit right away. Quen would absorb that hit for dueling units. Well, even though there's only one bronze dueling unit, and that is the Ice Troll, but of course if there's Quen out there, maybe your Yorveth changes as well, and your Yorveth meditation as well. But Quen has been taken out of the game apparently for tech reasons. Do you think it's going to come back as is? What do you think, NoControl?
I don't think it was a tech reason at all. No? I think it was a programming reason. Because they completely redeveloped everything. So, I mean, I guess tech is reprogramming, so to speak. But when I initially thought tech, I was thinking, some issues with the game. But anyway, they had to reprogram everything. So I think there was an initial thing with Quen that was stopping them from being able to do it. But I do think Quen on like an Ice Troll will be pretty sick. That would be pretty fun. Mm-hmm. that would be a buff to monsters that they need.
Yeah, I mean, monsters still never had a way to really source Quen reliably, but that was like I played a Wild Hunt Longship / Wild Hunt Drakkar list where I actually still ran a Quen because it was so important to get Quen on the longships so they didn't get removed, so you could like it was like a really weird deck where I was operating navigators and putting a Necro Warrior on the ships, and then you win round 3 just by spamming ships, and it was just like out of control. But it really, if you can remove the ships, it's not quite like that anymore. So I feel like the true potential of that deck was hinging on Quen and access to Quen. Monsters definitely could use it. The Ice Trolls would be pretty crazy. But I mean, they're already they're already bronze Imlerith, but that isn't even good because Imlerith isn't even good anymore. It's so weird looking at stuff that seemed to be good on paper based on a meta of yesterday, that sort of mindset, and what's actually turning out to be good right now. So the fact that you can actually play like Ice Troll decks where they get up to 5 potentially from Sleeping Giant, and then you duel them. They're 15-point cards. 15-point bronzes are good, right? But it's just not reliable, and it's just, you know, it's the numbers aren't there. Especially, I talked to Ocean Mud about it. He thinks the numbers aren't there, and I trust him when it comes to Eridan stuff.
Yeah.
So he's
you don't say no to Ocean Mud about Eridan.
No, he's the guy you ask, and he's like the Eridan guru, right? He's the guy.
Right.
He's in love with him, and it's an unholy romance. And one of the great questions, I think, or one of the great responses here is the full card names, right? Is that's something that we might not have expected to change, right, guys? I mean, I didn't expect to see Emir nerfed to, you know, just Emir instead of Emir of our Emrice. We have Stammelford's Tremors is now just Tremors, and I want to say that I think this is a good change, and I think it's a good change because I think it means that they're trying out mobile versions of Gwent, and you can't have card text like Stammelford's Tremors on one card and have it be easy to read on mobile. And just imagine the font size on a phone with a 4.5-inch screen. It's not going to work. So I think that maybe this is one of those subtle changes where the game is preparing itself to test out mobile Gwent.
Yeah, a lot of people thought that, and I also agree, except for the fact that they add cards like SHUPE'S Bizarre Adventure, which is like one of the longest card names that they've ever added. So I like the thing about the card names and the thing about triptych art, like the thing about all art and all design is that it's subjective. It's really who likes it more. And I think that I can see the reasons when you look at the deck builder and like the new UI, the amount of space there is for a card's name in that little rectangle that represents the card. I understand that. One thing that I'm okay with that a lot of people were not okay with was the changing of the clan names in the Skellige cards. One thing that I am not okay with was the removal of last names for some of the cards. Like Emir Var Emrys, why is Emir losing his last name when John Calvert gets to keep his last name? Why is Morvran Vorhis and not Morvran? Like stuff like that, like little things, like little weird things like that, I think I had the most problems with. But it was Skellige's clan names that I think I was okay because everything was Tuisark this and Dimun that, and you know the tag is there. The clan unit thing makes more sense. Like the Sigurdrifa effect makes more sense that way because it says clan in the name, so Sig can resurrect it. That's how I feel about it. NoControl, what do you think? You had your hand up there.
Yeah. I was just going to say, it just opens up possibilities for different Emirs. So, like, say you were making another leader of him, then if you don't add a last name to him, then you can be like, you can rename the first one Emir, I don't know, whatever, and then make another one, sort of like they did with Yennefer, or they do with Geralt, or anything like that. Yeah. That's what I was thinking initially when they started taking the last names off.
That's possible. I mean, old style Wild Hunt Witcher 3 Gwent, where all the leaders were just different versions of Full Test for Northern Realms or different versions of Eridan for monsters. I think it was only the expansion set that actually had different leaders, King Bran and Croc, I believe. So for Skellige. And I think that also I just want to point out that one of the worst card name changes, I will stand by this, and I agree with Drew Delta 65 that changing Marjoram to Mushrooms, that one hurts. That one hurts. I hope they change that one back because Mardro is Margo. I
didn't even realize that until like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that. I was like, wait, what is mushrooms?
Yeah.
What?
For sure.
I mean, how can new players pronounce marjoram? They just don't know until they just quit Gwent, obviously. They have stats on that probably. Opened marjoram in a keg, uninstalled client.
I mean, they could have maybe like Gwent has a pretty large catalog of names that are routinely mispronounced or, you know, artistically pronounced. Like people
like Geralt,
like Geralt or Geralt, yeah, like that kind of thing.
I don't know what's ever correct. I just say something. It's sick.
Chat's having fun with that. You asked me, NoControl, you're not looking at the chat, but chat did like Geralt there. But like stuff like I think Joachim, that card like there's a lot of controversy around that card.
Joachim? I say Joachim.
Joachim. You know. I think the correct pronunciation is Joachim for sure. But you know, like stuff like that. Like I think that for the most part, I mean, I've talked to people like at CD Projekt Red about pronouncing things correctly, but you know, there's still stuff that's tough. Like, especially when you're casting, you want to talk about a card that was just played. Usually I try to say the full card name, but the fact that there's like 5 different things that could be on crate or Tweesark is tough. Like, it's, you know, I'm trying to say, oh, the Tweesark Axeman, like, but you hear Tweesark so many times, it's like it starts to wash over, and it's maybe just less kind on the ears. So, and I think that Stammelford's Tremors, that's just a length issue for sure. And you make a good point. They might be adding another Emir card in the future, so it's interesting where they might be going with that. Too fast for you, Dwayne. Yeah, I'm just reading stuff in the chat now. Now I'm just reading lines in the chat. But yeah, Dwan the Rock Johnson. I don't even know what the context is in that, but I love it. That's awesome. Guys, this has been a great podcast. I've really enjoyed hanging out with you guys. Greyboxer, good to have you back. NoControl, great to know you as well. Once again, the Wild Hunt Philadelphia Gwent tournament is scheduled for the February 24th, 2018. Join NoControl, SHUPE'S, Joe Snow, and Sir Pumpkin. All will be streaming this Sunday around 1 p.m. Eastern Time, where you have a chance to contribute to the prize pool and, of course, secure your ticket to the event. I will be at the event. Greyboxer, you'll be traveling to the event. And NoControl, of course, you'll be at the event as well. So, you know, it's going to be a great time. Really looking forward to it. Thanks for coming on the podcast and letting us know all the details and getting the word out about the tournament. Where can people find you, NoControl, when you're not out there promoting the tournament? Do you stream these days? What are you up to?
Yep. So you can find me on Twitter at NoControlGG. And I am also on Twitch. I usually stream late nights, starting around 10:30 p.m. Eastern to whenever I get tired enough to sleep. Twitch.tv/NoControlXD, because I'm a memer.
Right on. And Greyboxer, you're getting back into it now. You're still tweeting. You're still doing stuff out there. Where can people find you if they want to hear what you're up to?
Oh, yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Greyboxer Gwent. The Twitter name is indicative of my my content, so if you want to see me talking about basically only Gwent and maybe Destiny 2, follow me at Greyboxer Gwent. I am also on Twitch at twitch.tv/Greyboxer, where I stream Gwent. Hopefully in the new year. Got some PC parts coming in the mail to make the stream even better, so looking forward to getting back into that.
Right on. Looking forward to seeing you stream as well. I can be found at McBearded on Twitch, where I'm streaming every day. Well, most days. I believe I'm taking Thursdays off just to make sure I can keep everything in order. But Monday to Wednesday, Friday, and some weekends, of course, playing Gwent predominantly. I can also be known to be playing Divinity 2. We have a campaign going, and it's always a good time. So, yeah, big fan. NoControl is a great game. Divinity 2 is so good.
I've watched a ton of it, but I haven't played it yet. I need to get on that.
It's lots of fun. It's a great RPG. So I do play that. So McBearded on Twitch. You can check my schedule it's my pinned tweet on Twitter at McBeardCH. My schedule is also on my info page at McBearded. Finally, I am uploading videos 4 days in a row now, sort of. I mean, I kind of sort of went early one day and late on another day, but I've been pretty good about getting videos out on a daily basis these days, and that feels really good. So I'm trying to get my content out there on YouTube, building a little bit. So check me out on YouTube, youtube.com/c/McBeard, or just search McBeard. You'll know the face. I hope the cartoon face. So, so yeah, check me out. And thanks again for everybody. Thanks NoControl for joining us from New Jersey, and for all your support in the Gwent community. Congratulations on making it into the G-Men, the Gwentelmen as well. But
Appreciate it.
I think that'll be it, guys. I think that'll be it. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us today.
Until next time, this is Greyboxer.
And this is McBeard.
Best of luck.
On the path.